The generator's growl swallowed the night, turning the old warehouse into a cage of trembling shadows. In the middle of the concrete floor sat a plastic table with a stack of papers, a blue pen, and a single metal chair. Zara's wrists were bound with zip ties that bit into her skin. Across from her, Benson, her stepdad, rolled the pen between his fingers like a slow, ticking clock. "Sign," he said, voice smooth as oil. "You're 18 now. You'll have your own life. Let me take care of the rest." Near the wall, Layla, Zara's mother, stood with her arms folded tight around herself, pressing her back into the corrugated iron as if she could disappear. She kept her eyes on the floor, refusing to meet her daughter's stare. In this heat, sweat should have run down her face, but Layla looked frozen, like someone praying to wake from a bad dream and failing. Zara stared at the papers. The first page wore her father's name in bold, Justice Adeyemi, deceased. Below it, Benson had typed a title in big letters, Transfer of Executorship and Beneficiary Rights. The font was too cheerful for what it would do. If she signed, Benson would gain control over Justice's trucking company, 3 rental homes, a quiet plot of land in Ogun State, and the bank accounts that had kept Zara fed and in school since the funeral. If she signed, the key to everything her father built would slide into Benson's pocket without a sound. Benson leaned closer, his cologne cutting through the engine fumes. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he murmured. "This is business, not war." "It's theft," Zara replied, the word coming out steady even though her heart hammered. "And you know it." Benson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "See, right there, your mouth. Your father let you talk too much. He should have taught you money doesn't wear a face. Paper goes where the strong send it." He flicked the pen. The blue cylinder skittered across the table and stopped against Zara's bound hands. The gesture was almost playful. Almost. Outside, an Atlanta train moaned through the distance, the sound slipping under the warehouse door like a wounded animal. Benson paced behind her and then stepped back into sight. He touched the corner of the top page, straightening it with care. "Your father trusted me," he said softly. "I was with him the week before he died. He said, 'Benson, watch over them. My girls don't know the street. I'm fulfilling a promise.'" "You're breaking one," Zara said. "He promised me I'd learn to run the company when I turned 18. He wrote it down. The lawyer has it." Benson tapped the paper stack. "Lawyers go where the money taps them." He turned to Layla. "Tell her. Tell your daughter to sign and end this." Layla's mouth trembled. She smoothed her dress, a bright Ankara print that had no business in such a dark place, and finally looked up. Her eyes were red. "Zara," she whispered. Just do what he says. We can fix it later. We'll find a way." Zara felt the words like a slap. "Fix what, Mom? Giving away Dad's life?" Layla flinched. Benson didn't. He reached down and tugged a second zip tie around one of Zara's ankles, tightening it until the plastic creaked. "Write your name," he said. "Right there under the witness line. You can still be primary beneficiary. I'm only helping move assets so the IRS doesn't make us bleed. Do you want your father's truck seized? Do you want your tenants evicted because you're a child pretending at business?" He shoved the pen back toward her, then bent and spoke near her ear. "Don't make me raise my voice." Zara swallowed hard. Pain throbbed where the ties dug into skin. On the table, her phone lay in 2 pieces. Benson had snapped it when she tried to call Auntie Saad. There would be no quick rescue. No cavalry. Just the generator, Benson's watchful eyes, Layla's silence, and the papers that could erase Justice Adeyemi's name from his own legacy. She took a breath and searched Benson's face. People lied with their mouths, but truth had a way of leaking out around the eyes. His gaze was hungry. Not practical, not protective, hungry. She saw the nights he came home late smelling of smoke and perfume, the small arguments he turned into storms, the way he called the will our opportunity, in the weeks after the funeral. She saw the hunger and knew it would not stop at signatures. "Why here?" she asked, nodding at the warehouse walls. "Why not the lawyer's office, if this is so clean?" "Because you're stubborn," Benson said lightly. "And stubborn plants need shade to bend." He slid a fresh blue folder out from a bag and opened it. The pages inside were stamped by a notary whose name Zara didn't recognize. He had thought of everything, or thought he had. "Let me read," she said. Benson snorted. "You're a high school graduate, not a board chair. You'll read when I tell you to read." Zara leaned back, letting the chair wobble on two legs. Her father used to say, "When the ground shakes, keep your eyes on the horizon. Find the fixed point." The generator rattled. A gecko skittered across a high beam. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed and faded. She pictured her father's smile, the way he held her shoulders when they walked the depot at dawn, teaching her the routes, the drivers, the insurance files. He always started at the office wall map, tapping Atlanta with the back of his pen. "Everything starts from home," he said. "And home starts from truth." Benson dragged the chair legs back down. "Enough thinking. Pick up the pen." He put it between her fingers and closed her hand around it. His grip was warm and heavy. The pen tip bled a dot into the page. Her name waited in empty script lines. If she refused, she knew Benson would tighten the ties. Maybe worse. She could take the pain, but she couldn't take the chance that he'd turn it on her mother. Layla stared at the floor again, as if looking too long at either of them would make her break. Zara let her breath out slow. "Fine," she said. "I'll sign. But I need my right hand free. If the signature is messy, your notary friend will notice." Benson hesitated. He glanced at Layla, who nodded quickly and looked away yet again. He pulled a pocketknife, flipped it open with a soft click, and sliced the tie around Zara's right wrist. Her hand flooded with pins and needles. "Don't get cute," he said. "One wrong move, and I add a page that sells your father's trucks today." Zara rolled her wrist subtly, forcing blood back into the fingers. The pen warmed in her grip. She bent over the document. The letters swam for a moment, then snapped into focus. In the corner of her vision she saw Benson's shadow lean in. She wrote slowly, "Zaraadeyemi," neat and careful, just as her father taught her to sign any paper that touched his name. Then she paused above the line that said witness. "You," she said, looking at Layla. "You witness." Layla took a half step, then stopped at Benson's sharp look. "He'll witness," Layla whispered. "Benson will." "Of course I will," Benson said with a smile that showed too many teeth. Zara nodded, letting the pause stretch as if she were swallowing pride. With her left hand, she adjusted the paper slightly, pushing the top page up to reveal the second. As she did, she palmed the tiny USB voice recorder tucked under the edge of the folder. It was no bigger than a house key, painted black, and she had slipped it there hours before when she first recognized Benson's setup was a trap. She had one shot to make it count. She clicked the recorder on with her thumb, the motion hidden by the tilt of the paper. The red light was no more than a pinprick against the blue file, nearly invisible, but to her it flared like a sunrise. She lifted the pen again and signed the second line, but not on the transfer form Benson expected. She slid the top sheet forward just enough to scribe on the page beneath it, a sworn statement she and her father's real attorney had prepared and dated, waiting for the day Benson pushed too far. Declaration of coercion, it read, with a space for details and names. Benson, impatient, tapped the table. "Finish," he snapped. "Date here." "Here." "Almost," Zara said, forcing her face calm. She wrote, in a firm hand, the words her lawyer had suggested if ever she needed to prove pressure, signature affixed under duress at warehouse on Wesley Street. Present, Benson Carter and Layla Adeyemi. She added the time from the cracked wall clock. The recorder captured every scratch of the pen, every word Benson tossed in the air like hooks. Faster, he hissed. We don't have all night. Zara slid the top transfer form back into position and scrawled on its margin, not on the signature line, but across the white space near the footer, 3 letters that would keep any decent bank from honoring it, DURESS. Benson didn't see. He was watching her hand reach the bottom of the page. He reached for the folder. Now the last page, he said. The notary acknowledgement. The warehouse door shuddered. All 3 of them froze. The generator's engine hiccuped and steadied. Another sound followed, a careful, deliberate rattle of the padlock outside, then the metal scrape of bolts sliding back. Benson's eyes cut to Layla, then to Zara. You brought someone, he snapped. Zara didn't answer. Her heartbeat jumped into her throat. She felt the tiny recorder near her palm, its heat like a secret flame. The door swung inward on a wash of hot night air. A silhouette filled the frame, broad-shouldered, still. For a second, no one breathed. Then a voice came, calm as a judge, heavy as an oath. Drop the pen, Benson, the figure said. Step away from Justice Adeyemi's daughter. Benson's hand tightened on the folder. Layla let out a small sound, a gasp swallowed back. Zara lifted her eyes and saw the face in the doorway, lit by the yellow warehouse bulb, and everything she thought she knew about who stood with her and who stood against her tilted. The figure took one step forward, and the padlock chain slipped to the floor with a final, ringing note. The figure stepped into the light, tall and steady in a navy blazer, a leather folder tucked under one arm. Silver hair at his temples glinted like wire. Mr. Kwame Mensah, Justice Adeyemi's attorney, didn't raise his voice again. He didn't need to. A second presence moved behind him, a Fulton County deputy, Hall, broad-shouldered and calm, one hand hovering near his belt, the other carrying a small body camera that blinked red. Benson's smile went rigid. Evening, counselor, he said. This is private family business. Mensah's gaze took in the scene, the split phone, the zip ties, Zara's reddened wrists, Layla pressed to the wall in that too bright encre. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. You made it public when you tried to launder a decedent's estate through a warehouse, Mr. Carter, he said evenly. Deputy. Hall took 2 steps in, planting his boots on the grooved concrete like he was measuring the room. Everyone stay where you are, he said. Hands visible. Benson's hands lifted a fraction. No one's hurt. She's being dramatic, he said, angling his chin toward Zara. She agreed to sign, then. Agreed? Mensah repeated softly. He set his leather folder on the table beside the stacked papers. He didn't touch the transfer forms. He opened his own folder instead and slid out a stapled pack stamped with the probate court seal. Emergency motion for a temporary injunction, he said. Signed at 8:14 p.m. by Judge Addison. It bars any transfer, assignment, or encumbrance of Justice Adeyemi's assets pending full review. He looked up, eyes steady. And it bars you, Mr. Carter, from acting in any fiduciary capacity for this estate. Benson laughed, quick and dry. You think a paper stops money? Counselor, you want a war you don't understand. Deputy Hall moved a little closer to Benson. Sir, he said, voice neutral. Hands flat on the table. Benson's jaw flexed. He obeyed, palms down on the cold plastic. Zara felt something loosen at the base of her neck, a knot she hadn't noticed until it slackened, not safety, but the first breath after you've been underwater too long. Mensah turned to Layla with gentler eyes. Mrs. Adeyemi, he said. We can go home now. Let's all breathe. Layla swallowed. Her gaze flicked from Mensah to Benson and back again, as if each man were a door she'd paid for but could never open. I didn't want this, she whispered. I told him we should wait for your call. Wait. Benson snapped. He never moved his hands from the table, but his words cut like a slap. Wait while the IRS freezes accounts and drivers quit. While men who depended on justice miss paychecks because his daughter wants to play CEO. Mensah's face didn't change. Justice prepared for that, he said. I have letters of credit. The company's payroll is secured for 90 days while the court appoints a neutral administrator. You're lying, Benson said automatically, too fast. Zara looked at the blue folder and the pen still warm in her hand. Her wrist throbbed where the zip tie had bitten flesh. She slid her right hand casually toward her lap, cupping the tiny recorder against her palm, feeling its thrum. Every word Benson spoke was being saved in clean digital blood. Deputy Hall reached into a pouch and produced a small pair of trauma shears. He cut the zip tie binding Zara's left wrist in one neat snip. Pins and needles shot like sparks. You okay, miss? He asked without looking away from Benson. I will be, she said, voice steady. She glanced at her mother. Layla had pressed her knuckles to her mouth, as if the sight of plastic falling away were a sin. Mensah took in the angle of the transfer forms, and the faint duress scrawled along the margin like a tripwire. He almost smiled. Almost. Smart girl, he murmured. Zara didn't smile. He wanted me to sign everything, she said, still watching her mother. He wanted to empty Dad's life into his hands. Layla flinched. Don't say it like that, she whispered. Benson. Benson just wants to keep things together. Your father, she trailed off, eyes filling. Your father left so many moving pieces. I panic. I don't sleep. There are bills I don't understand. Mensah softened. I know, he said. That's why Justice asked me to set up a step-by-step for you. We were going to do that next week. He always planned for you to co-manage with an independent accountant, Zara. Not with, he didn't finish the sentence, but the air around, not with, felt like a wall. Benson let out a small, contemptuous sound. He always planned, he mimicked. Justice planned everything except the day a drunk ran a red light. He turned, finally, to Deputy Hall. Officer, are we detained? Because from where I stand, there is no crime here. There is a family disagreement, and a lawyer collecting fees by the hour. Hall's face remained carved wood. You're here with a bound 18-year-old, unsigned legal documents, and a broken phone, he said. You're not detained. You are staying put while I get everyone's statements. If you move toward that door without my say-so, we'll have a different conversation. Silence tensed the room like a wire. Zara blinked, and the warehouse folded into a memory, her father's office at dawn, the map, his voice. People show you their weather, he'd said once, tapping Atlanta. Not just the forecast they post. Watch when a storm comes. The storm came the day Benson appeared, 2 years ago, with easy laughter and a spare tire hoisted like it was nothing. He'd met Layla at the little Ethiopian place off Buford Highway where she waited tables on weekends after hospital shifts. He tipped well. He fixed things. He knew trucking, he said. He sold parts. He could help Justice negotiate better rates. He was polite, in the way a snake is still. He started accompanying Layla to church. Then holidays. Then the wedding, small, quiet, for company optics, Benson had said, even though no one at the depot cared about optics. He said he'd keep his own apartment, to give Zara space, but his toothbrush sprouted in Justice's bathroom like a flag. He called Zara, kiddo, and corrected her when she said drivers' names. He bragged about friends who could make paperwork disappear if the DMV got sticky. He touched Layla's lower back when they stood in line, a pressure that looked casual but felt like ownership. When Justice died, Benson's hands moved fast. He made calls Zara couldn't see. He visited the bank without asking. He told Layla grief made mistakes. He told Zara school was more important than minding files you don't understand. He said, our company, and watched for who would flinch. Mensa had flinched. Quietly. He started coming by the house in the evenings, for tea, and he taught Zara to read a balance sheet the way she'd learned to read bedtime stories at 6. He showed her what to ask bankers. He taught her how to document anything that felt wrong. Tonight, when Benson insisted on a warehouse meeting, to clear the air, Mensa had texted a single sentence: if anything feels off, plug in the recorder and stall. Stall, she had done. Now the stall ended. Mrs. Adeyemi, Mensa said, turning back to Layla. I won't pretend this is simple. But it is lawful. We'll go home, you'll rest, and tomorrow. Tomorrow. Benson cut in. Tomorrow what? You file motions while trucks sit idle. You let her, he jerked his chin at Zara, pretend she can lead men twice her age, sign vendor contracts she can't read? You think shuffling paper will stop a business from bleeding? Zara felt heat rise in her chest. I've been at the yard since I was 12, she said. I can calculate a route faster than you can iron a shirt. And the men you think won't follow me? They're the ones who sent you to voicemail all week. Something flashed behind Benson's eyes, a flare like pain. Watch your mouth, he said quietly. Deputy Hall cleared his throat, an audible reset. We're going to walk out to my cruiser, he said. Slowly. Mr. Mensa, you'll help the young lady. Mrs. Adeyemi, you'll come with me. Mr. Carter, you'll follow us. If anyone reaches for anything I haven't seen, we start over with handcuffs. Understood? Benson's nostrils flared. For a moment, Zara thought he would lunge. She watched the tiny muscles in his forearm twitch. But he lifted his hands and stepped back. Understood. They moved. The generator's buzz softened as the warehouse door yawned wider. Night air wrapped them, wet, electric, carrying faraway bass from a passing car and the sour tang of hot asphalt. Mensa gathered the transfer forms gently into his folder, keeping fingertips on the blue pages just long enough for the body cam to catch the duress scrawl. He slid the incriminating pen on top. Zara walked between Mensa and Layla. When their shoulders brushed, Layla trembled. I'm sorry, Layla whispered, so low Zara almost missed it. I'm sorry for tonight. Zara searched her mother's profile in the weak light, the tired lines at the mouth, the smudge of mascara at one eye, the tension spread like a bruise across her shoulders. Then why didn't you say something, she asked. It came out more pleading than she wanted. Layla swallowed. Because sometimes survival looks like silence, she said. And sometimes silence is a mistake you don't know how to fix. Before Zara could answer, Deputy Hall's radio crackled. He paused by the cruiser, listening. Repeat, he said into his mic static, then a dispatcher's clipped voice poured out into the night, each word a stone. Hall's expression didn't change, but the pause between his breaths did. Mensa noticed. Deputy, he asked. Hall clicked off, considering them each, then flipped his body cam to mark the moment. I need everyone to listen, he said, professional cadence snapping tight. I just received an update from the on-call probate clerk. Mensa's brows drew together. At this hour? An emergency petition was filed earlier today, Hall said. Ex parte. The court granted it at 5:42 p.m. It appoints a temporary conservator over Ms. Zara Adeyemi's financial affairs for 30 days pending a hearing. The night tilted. Zara's ears rang. For a second the world shrank to Hall's mouth and the word, conservator. Who? Mensa asked, voice gone very quiet. Hall glanced at his screen, then back up. Petitioner, Layla Adeyemi, he read. Temporary conservator appointed, Benson Carter. The words landed like a hammer. Something fragile in the air cracked. Mensa's jaw tightened. That's impossible, he said. We were with Judge Addison at 8. He granted an injunction controlling for any Different judge, Hall said. Ex parte petition went to Judge Rivera. She signed it before your filing crossed her desk. Zara turned to her mother. Layla's hands were clasped so tight the knuckles blanched. Tears stood in her eyes, bright as glass. Mom. Zara said. Nothing else would form. Mom. Layla opened her mouth. Closed it. When the words came, they scraped. I thought, she whispered. I thought it would protect you from making a mistake, just for a little while. I didn't know he would. Benson smiled then, slow, victorious, a man stepping into a suit he'd been measuring for months. He spread his hands, as if to say what can any of us do but obey paper. Deputy, he said softly, almost polite. Shall we discuss next steps, as her conservator? The generator behind them sputtered and died, and the warehouse fell dark with a sound like a held breath finally let go. The silence after the generator's death was thick, humming with a weight even the night couldn't carry. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, sharp and hollow, then stopped. The only sound left was Zara's shallow breathing, each inhale scraping her throat raw. Her eyes stayed locked on her mother. You filed that? She asked again, softer this time, like maybe a gentle tone could change the answer. Layla's lips parted, but the words jammed in her chest. She finally nodded, her chin trembling. Zara's world buckled. The man who tied her hands had Benson's face, but the betrayal had her mother's signature. Mensa shifted, stepping between Benson and Zara instinctively. Mrs. Adeyemi, he said carefully, voice pitched low, do you understand what you signed? A petition for conservatorship strips Zara of her right to manage her own inheritance. You effectively placed all authority in his hands. Layla's tears spilled then, streaking down her cheeks. I thought it was temporary. Just until she was ready. I didn't want her drowning in numbers, in contracts. Justice left so much, Anne. Justice left his daughter, Mensa cut in sharply, the first time his tone cracked. Not Benson. Not you. Her. Benson chuckled, leaning casually against the cruiser though Deputy Hall's hand hovered near his belt still. Counselor, you'll give yourself an ulcer. Paper's paper. Signed, sealed, delivered. The judge already blessed it. He spread his arms, savoring the moment. So, unless little Zara here has a miracle tucked in that neat braids of hers, it's my show now. Zara's fists clenched. She wanted to scream, to rip the smirk off his face. Instead, she reached for the truth she still held, the recorder, warm and buzzing like a secret heartbeat in her palm. She didn't show it. Not yet. Not while the game bent this far against her. Deputy Hall broke the tension. Let's get out of here, he said firmly. This isn't the place for this. We'll move to the station. Everyone will have their say on record. But Benson wasn't done. On record, he echoed. Fine. Let's make it official. But the station can't erase court orders, Deputy. When the sun comes up, those trucks, those houses, every account, he tapped his chest lightly, mine to manage. Zara snapped her gaze to her mother again. You knew what this meant, Mom. You had to. You gave him Dad's name like it was spare change. Layla shook her head frantically. No. I thought, he said, she broke off, pressing both hands to her face. Mensa's jaw flexed. He didn't speak, but Zara caught the glint in his eye. He wasn't beaten. Not yet. Hall motioned toward the cruiser. Everyone inside. Now. The ride was a blur. Zara sat wedged between Mensa and her mother in the back seat, the deputy's radio hissing faintly in the front. Benson sat smug and silent, eyes flicking to her reflection in the glass whenever the streetlights cut across his face. At the precinct, Hall ushered them into a windowless room with pale walls and a single buzzing fluorescent bulb. He had them sit at opposite sides of a metal table. Mensa folded his hands calmly in front of him. Layla clutched her purse like a lifeline. Benson leaned back, one ankle crossed over his knee, the picture of confidence. Zara stared at the table. In the glassy reflection of the metal, she could just see the recorder in her palm, its tiny red light still blinking. Every word Benson had hissed in that warehouse, every threat, every demand, every mention of our company, captured and waiting. Mensa leaned toward her slightly, his voice pitched so only she heard. "Don't show it yet," he murmured. "Evidence speaks loudest when arrogance walks first." Deputy Hall returned with a clipboard. "Everyone will make a statement," he said. "Then we'll determine next steps." Before anyone could answer, the precinct door opened, and another officer stepped in. He held a sealed envelope, the court seal stamped across it. He handed it to Hall without a word. Hall opened it, scanning quickly. His brow furrowed. He exhaled through his nose before reading aloud. By order of Judge Rivera, effective immediately, Benson Carter is authorized as temporary conservator of Zara Adeyemi's estate and holdings, with full powers of management. All objections to be heard in 30 days. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Benson's smile widened, slow and deliberate, as he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "So, counselor," he said silkily, "what miracle do you have left now?" Mensa stayed silent, his face carved stone. Zara felt her heartbeat pound, her throat dry. For the first time that night, doubt scraped her resolve. 30 days. 30 days in Benson's grip could strip everything her father left. But then she felt the recorder again, hidden and alive in her palm. She lifted her chin, meeting Benson's eyes directly, her voice calm and steady. "I have something you don't," she said. Benson raised an eyebrow. "And what's that, little girl?" Zara set the tiny device on the table, the red light blinking in the sterile glow. "A voice you can't silence." The room froze. And just as Deputy Hall leaned forward to reach for it, the recorder's battery gave a low, final beep, then went dead. Benson's laughter filled the silence, echoing off the walls like a victory drum. Zara's stomach twisted. Had she just lost her only weapon? Mensa's eyes, though, flicked to her, a spark of something fierce in his gaze. He wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The fight for Justice Adeyemi's legacy had just begun. The precinct felt colder than the warehouse had, even though the air conditioning was broken. The walls pressed in on Zara as if the building itself wanted her to surrender. The dead recorder sat on the table like a useless pebble, its red light gone dark. Benson leaned back in his chair, lacing his fingers behind his head. "See? Empty tricks," he said with a smirk. "You've got nothing, girl. 30 days is all I need. 30 days, and your father's empire will be stitched so tight around me you won't untangle it in 30 years. Zara clenched her fists under the table. She wanted to scream, but Mensa's steady hand tapped once against her knee, a reminder. Anger was fire, but fire without direction burned you first. Deputy Hall cleared his throat. "Mr. Mensa, Mrs. Adeyemi, young lady, this is no longer a precinct issue. The courts will handle it. Until then, Benson Carter's authority stands." The word stung worse than a slap. Benson grinned like the room was his stage. He reached over and, without asking, scooped the recorder into his palm. "I'll keep this," he said smoothly. "Wouldn't want anyone editing tapes, now would we?" "Put it down," Mensa snapped, his calm finally cracking. "That's evidence." Benson tapped the dead device with a finger, mocking. "Evidence? Counselor, this thing's dead. It's as empty as her claims." Before Mensa could answer, the door opened again. A young officer entered, carrying a slim laptop. "Deputy Hall," he said, "IT just forwarded something. You'll want to see this." Hall frowned, motioned for the laptop, and set it on the table. A video played on the screen, grainy, dark, but clear enough. The body cam feed from Hall's vest, captured in the warehouse. Benson's voice, sharp and threatening, poured into the room. Pick up the pen. One wrong move, and I add a page that sells your father's trucks today. Don't make me raise my voice. Benson froze. His smirk faltered as his own words filled the precinct room. Mensa leaned back slowly, his voice returning to calm steel. The recorder may be dead, he said, but truth has more than one witness. Zara's chest expanded, breath rushing back in. Relief wasn't victory, but it was a lifeline. Benson recovered quickly, though, shrugging. Out of context, he said smoothly. You know how people twist things. She was playing dramatic. Family tension. Nothing criminal. Hall didn't answer. He simply clicked a button to save the file under an evidence log. Layla had been silent through it all, her eyes glued to the table. But now she spoke, her voice trembling. Benson, maybe we should stop. This isn't. Quiet, Benson snapped, his mask slipping. You started this with me, Layla. Don't act like your hands are clean now. Zara's head whipped toward her mother. Started this? What is he talking about? Layla's lips quivered. She shook her head, but Benson pressed on, voice low and venomous. Who do you think walked me into Judge Rivera's chambers today? Who signed the affidavit saying you weren't fit to manage a dime? She did. Zara's stomach twisted. The betrayal hit again, sharper than before. Her own mother. Layla broke then, tears spilling fast. I thought it was temporary, she cried. I thought it was for your safety. He said the company was too heavy for you. I didn't know he would. Didn't know. Zara cut in, her voice cracking. You signed me away like I was a child, and you didn't know. The room throbbed with silence after her words. Even Benson didn't gloat this time. Mensa turned to Hall. Deputy, this is more than probate. It's coercion layered on fraud. You've got his threats recorded, and her testimony here and now. Conservatorship or not, the court will hear this. Hall nodded slowly. I'll file it with the DA's office. Benson's calm cracked. He slammed a palm on the table. You don't know who you're playing with, he hissed. This city is built on people like me. You think some tape and a crying girl will break me? Mensa leaned forward, unblinking. Yes. The tension was so thick it choked. Zara looked between them, her body trembling with adrenaline. For the first time since her father's funeral, she felt the war wasn't just hers to fight. Mensa was with her. Even Deputy Hall, stone-faced as he was, had drawn a line. But as they prepared to leave the room, Benson's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and for the briefest second, satisfaction flickered across his face. Whatever message he read, it gave him power again. Mensa noticed. What is it? He asked sharply. Benson slipped the phone back into his pocket, his smirk returning. Let's just say, tomorrow morning, things will look very different. The chapter closed on Zara's wide eyes, fear and fury colliding in her chest. She didn't know what Benson was planning, but she knew one thing, her stepdad wasn't finished. Neither was she. What would you have done if your own mother sided with someone trying to take away your father's legacy? Do you think Layla betrayed Zara out of fear or greed? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel and like this video so you don't miss what happens next. The next morning, the sun poured into the courthouse lobby like gold meant to disguise rust. Reporters crowded near the steps, cameras flashing, microphones stabbing toward anyone who looked like they might know the Adeyemi name. Justice Adeyemi's death had been news. His daughter fighting her stepfather for the fortune he left behind. That was a headline. Zara walked beside Mensa, her jaw tight, ignoring the murmurs that followed her. Layla trailed behind, wrapped in a dull gray shawl that seemed to swallow her frame. Benson, in a crisp charcoal suit, strode confidently through the crowd, smiling at the cameras like a man arriving at his coronation. Benson leaned down slightly toward Zara. "Stay steady," he said. "He thrives on spectacle. We thrive on facts." But Zara's stomach churned. She couldn't shake the smirk Benson wore the night before when that message lit up his phone. She knew he was hiding something, and today they were about to find out what. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was no less suffocating. The wooden benches creaked with bodies, drivers from her father's trucking company, old friends of justice, even distant relatives who hadn't shown their faces at the funeral. Whispers slid like snakes between the pews. When Judge Addison entered, everyone rose. Zara's heart beat so loud she thought the bailiff might hear it. Benson opened with calm precision, submitting the body cam evidence from the warehouse. Benson's threats echoed through the courtroom, causing a ripple of shock across the audience. Zara's throat burned as she relived each word, but she held her head high. Then it was Benson's turn. He rose smoothly, buttoning his jacket, his smile polite as if he were at a dinner party. "Your Honor," he began, "grief is a complicated thing. Families lash out. Words are twisted. But none of that changes what the law has already decided. Yesterday, Judge Rivera appointed me temporary conservator. I am here to carry out my legal duty, to protect this estate from collapse while Miss Adeyemi finds her footing." He turned slightly, looking directly at Zara, his smile edged with mock pity. "It is not theft. It is stewardship. And it is lawful." Judge Addison frowned, tapping his gavel lightly. "Mr. Benson, is this true? Did Judge Rivera issue such an order?" Benson stiffened. "Yes, Your Honor. But the petition was filed under questionable circumstances. We intend to challenge it." "Questionable?" Benson echoed, chuckling. "The only questionable thing here is whether this young lady is prepared to manage millions of dollars and dozens of employees when she can't even keep her emotions in check." He gestured toward Zara with an almost fatherly sigh. "Her own mother came to me in fear of her daughter's recklessness. That speaks volumes." All eyes turned to Layla. She shrank under the weight of their stares, her hands twisting the fabric of her shawl. Zara's chest tightened. "Mom," she whispered, though the word barely carried past her lips. Judge Addison looked over his glasses. "Mrs. Adeyemi, do you wish to confirm this?" Layla opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She glanced at Benson, then at her daughter. The silence stretched until it hurt. Finally, she whispered, I signed it." The court erupted into murmurs. Zara closed her eyes, swallowing the scream clawing up her throat. Benson stepped forward quickly. "Your Honor, whether Mrs. Adeyemi signed or not, coercion is plain. The body cam shows threats. The conservatorship was filed without notice, against the very wishes Justice expressed in his will. We request an immediate suspension of Benson Carter's authority until a full hearing." Benson laughed, confident again. Requests. But the law has already spoken. And while we waste time here, the company suffers. In fact, he pulled a folded paper from his briefcase and held it up triumphantly. "This morning, as conservator, I signed an order transferring operational control of Adeyemi Logistics to a trusted associate. Someone who can keep the wheels turning." He handed the paper to the bailiff, who brought it to the judge. Addison scanned it, his frown deepening. "Who?" Benson demanded. Benson smiled wide, turning slightly so his words carried across the courtroom. "None other than Deshaun Green. A man with resources, connections, and the drive to take Adeyemi Logistics further than justice ever dreamed." A murmur swept the courtroom. Zara froze. She knew the name. Everyone in Atlanta did. Deshaun Green wasn't just a man with resources. He was a ruthless businessman rumored to use intimidation and street muscle to get what he wanted. If Benson had tied her father's company to him, everything Justice built was already on a knife's edge. Mensa's face darkened. Your Honor, this is exactly why we asked for suspension. Benson Carter is not preserving this estate, he is selling it off to vultures. Judge Addison raised a hand. Enough. I will review all filings before making any ruling. Until then, the conservatorship order remains. Zara's blood ran cold. No, she whispered. Benson leaned just close enough for her to hear. Yes, he breathed. And by the time this court catches up, your father's empire will already belong to us. Zara's fists trembled in her lap. For the first time, fear threatened to drown her completely. But beneath it, another fire burned hotter, rage. If Benson thought she would let him hand her father's company to Deshaun Green, he was wrong. Mensa touched her shoulder gently, grounding her. We still have moves, he murmured. But Zara barely heard him. Her mind was already racing, clawing for a way to fight back. As the gavel struck and the court adjourned, she caught Benson's smug glance toward Deshaun Green himself, sitting quietly in the back row with a sharp suit and colder eyes. Their gazes met, and Deshaun smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips. And in that moment, Zara realized this battle had just shifted into a war far bigger than she had imagined. The courthouse emptied like a punctured balloon, whispers and gasps floating out with the crowd. Reporters swarmed Benson as he stepped into the sunlight, but he didn't flinch. He lifted his chin, letting their cameras catch the perfect angle of his smug smile. Beside him, Deshaun Green walked slow and deliberate, each step announcing his presence like a drumbeat. Zara stood on the steps with Mensa, the weight of it all pressing on her. Layla trailed behind, clutching her shawl like it might shield her from the shame. Mensa, Zara whispered, if Deshaun takes the company. He won't, Mensa cut her off, though his tone carried more steel than certainty. But we need proof. Something to make the court see that Benson isn't protecting assets, he's liquidating them for personal gain. Until then, Judge Addison's hands are tied. And in 30 days, Zara swallowed, there'll be nothing left to fight for. Mensa's eyes softened. Unless we move faster than him. Before Zara could answer, a black SUV purred to a stop at the curb. The tinted window rolled down, revealing Deshaun's sharp, angular face. His smile was the kind that carried no warmth. You look just like your father, he said, his voice low and smooth. But you've got more fire than he did. That could be useful. Zara froze. Mensa instinctively stepped forward, shielding her slightly. Mr. Green, anything you have to say should go through the court, he said firmly. Deshaun ignored him, his eyes locked on Zara. You think this is about signatures and judges? No. This is about power. Your father built something strong, but he built it in a world of wolves. Wolves don't respect paper. They respect teeth. The SUV pulled away before Zara could answer, leaving the echo of his words hanging heavy in the air. Mensa exhaled. That man is poison. We can't let Benson tie him to the estate. Zara's stomach churned, but her hands tightened into fists. Then we find proof. That night, back at her father's office, the one room Benson hadn't stripped yet, Zara sat at Justice Adeyemi's old mahogany desk. The air smelled faintly of engine oil and paper, the scent of her childhood mornings spent learning from her father. She pulled open drawer after drawer. Files, receipts, contracts. Her father's handwriting scrawled across margins. She traced her fingers along the ink, steadying herself. Mensa entered quietly, carrying his leather folder. Looking for something in particular? Anything, she admitted. Something Benson can't twist. Something Dad left that proves what he wanted for me. Mensa set a slim folder on the desk. I think we may already have it. Your father's draft letter of instruction. Zara's breath caught. She opened the folder, eyes scanning the words. Justice had written it just months before his death. In it, he clearly stated his wish, that Zara be trained to take full control of Adeyemi logistics by her 18th birthday, with Mensa to guide her until she was confident. Tears blurred her vision. Why didn't you show this in court? Mensa's jaw tightened. Because it isn't notarized. A draft, not a binding directive. Judge Addison would dismiss it in a second. But, he leaned closer. If we find Benson's financial moves, if we show he's already bleeding the company into Deshawn's hands, then this letter becomes the nail in his coffin. It proves intent. Zara wiped her eyes. So we catch him stealing. Mensa nodded slowly. Exactly. The plan was simple in words, brutal in execution: track Benson's accounts, watch every wire transfer, every business expense that connected him to Deshawn. But Benson was cunning. He hid things in shadows, behind names, behind proxies. That night, as Zara combed through dusty ledgers, a knock rattled the office door. She froze. Mensa motioned for her to stay seated and opened it carefully. Layla stood in the hall, eyes swollen from crying. Please, she whispered, stepping inside. You have to believe me. I didn't know Benson would drag Deshawn into this. I thought he just wanted to stabilize things. Zara's chest tightened. You gave him the keys, Mom. You made this possible. Layla flinched. I know. But I can help fix it. I overheard a call tonight. Benson is meeting Deshawn at an abandoned yard tomorrow. He's moving assets off the books, selling trucks under the table. Mensa's eyes sharpened. Did you hear where? Layla nodded. The old Riverdale lot. Midnight. Zara's pulse quickened. This was it, the chance to catch Benson red-handed. Mensa turned to her. It's dangerous. If you come, you stay behind me. We record, we leave. No heroics. Zara met his gaze, her jaw set. I'm not staying behind anymore. He's taken enough from me. I'm seeing this with my own eyes. The room hung in silence, the decision already carved in stone. As Layla wept quietly in the corner, Zara clenched her father's old fountain pen in her hand. For years, it had been just a pen. Tonight, it was a promise. Tomorrow at midnight, the truth would either set her free, or destroy everything Justice Adeyemi had left behind. The Riverdale lot sat on the edge of the city like a scar, rusting shipping containers stacked haphazardly, broken streetlights leaning like tired soldiers, weeds pushing through cracked asphalt. Midnight painted everything in shades of black and silver. Zara crouched behind a dented truck trailer with Mensa and Layla. The night air smelled of damp metal and oil. Her heart thudded so loudly she feared it would give them away. Mensa checked his watch. He'll be here soon. Remember, no talking unless I say. We get the evidence, then we go. Zara nodded, clutching the small camcorder Mensa had given her. She still had her father's fountain pen tucked into her pocket, its weight reminding her why they were there. Layla knelt beside her, trembling, her shawl pulled tight though the night was warm. Headlights cut across the lot. A black Mercedes rolled in first, sleek and polished against the ruin. Behind it, two flatbed trucks rattled, their cargo covered with tarps. Zara's breath caught. She didn't need to look twice to know, those were her father's trucks. The Mercedes door opened. Benson stepped out, immaculate in another tailored suit, as if midnight deals were simply another day at the office. A moment later, Deshawn Green emerged from the second vehicle. He wore no jacket, just a dark shirt that hugged his frame, but his presence was heavier than any armor. Two men followed him, both built like walls, their hands never far from their waistbands. Zara lifted the camcorder, zooming in. Her hands shook, but she steadied them against the trailer's metal edge. Benson spread his arms. Deshawn, my friend. On schedule, as promised. 3 trucks, clean titles, fresh paint. By morning they'll be off my books and on yours. Deshaun walked slowly around one of the trucks, his hand trailing along the tarp as though he were testing the strength of the steel underneath. And the paperwork? In the briefcase, Benson said, tapping the car roof. Signed by yours truly. Conservator rights are a beautiful thing. By the time the court blinks, these assets will be long gone. Zara's stomach nodded. She pressed record. Every word felt like a nail Benson was hammering into his own coffin. Deshaun stopped, his gaze sharp. You're sure the girl won't fight this? Benson smirked. She'll try. But the court listens to paper, not tantrums. Besides, his voice lowered, venom laced in silk. Her mother's too scared to cross me again. Layla flinched beside Zara, tears stinging her eyes. Zara's throat tightened, but she kept filming. Deshaun nodded, satisfied. Then let's talk numbers. The men moved closer, speaking in low tones. Mensah's hand touched Zara's arm, signaling they had enough. We go, he mouthed. But as Zara shifted, her elbow knocked against a loose piece of metal. It clattered to the ground with a sound far too loud in the silence. Benson's head snapped around. His eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows. Wait. He raised a hand, silencing Deshaun. We're not alone. Mensah cursed under his breath. Stay low, he whispered. But it was too late. One of Deshaun's men drew a flashlight and swept the beam across the lot. It sliced through the darkness, landing just inches from Zara's shoes. Over there, the man barked. Layla gasped, stumbling back. The light caught her face. Benson's expression twisted into fury. Layla, he roared. What are you? Deshaun's eyes went ice cold. You brought company, he said softly, dangerously. Benson snarled. No. This wasn't part of the plan. The bodyguard raised a pistol, stepping forward. Zara's blood turned to fire. Mensah pulled her behind him, his own arms wide. Run, he hissed. But Zara didn't move. She still had the camcorder, still recording, Benson's betrayal spilling into the lens. She raised it high, her voice cracking but strong. The world is going to see this. Benson's face drained of color. Shut it off, he bellowed. Deshaun's men stepped closer, weapons gleaming in the thin light. For a heartbeat, Zara thought it was over, that her father's legacy, her life, everything would end here in the dirt. Then, flashing red and blue lights exploded across the lot. Sirens wailed. Police cars swarmed in from both entrances, tires screeching, doors flying open. Officers poured out, guns raised, shouts filling the air. Hands in the air. Drop your weapons. The night shattered into chaos. Zara's heart thundered as she clutched the camcorder tighter. But through the frenzy, her eyes locked on Benson. Even with police flooding the lot, he wasn't afraid. He wasn't panicked. He was smiling. And that smile told Zara something chilling. Benson had expected this. The Riverdale lot exploded with sirens, gunmetal light, and shouting. Officers in bulletproof vests fanned out, weapons aimed, commanding Benson, Deshaun, and the bodyguards to drop everything. Deshaun's men froze, pistols dangling hesitantly in the air before clattering to the ground. Deshaun raised his hands slowly, his face expressionless, a man too calm for the chaos around him. But Benson didn't look cornered. He looked like a man finally unveiling the second act of his performance. Officers. Benson called out, his hands raised high, his voice smooth and commanding. Thank God you're here. I was about to be killed. Zara blinked, the words slamming into her ears. What? She whispered. Benson took a quick step forward, pointing directly at Zara, Mensah, and Layla, still crouched near the truck. Those three followed me here with armed men. They've been threatening me for weeks, trying to take control of my late stepdaughter's estate. And now they've set me up with criminals. What are you doing? Layla gasped, her voice trembling. Benson ignored her, spinning the lie with practiced ease. Check the cameras, they've been stalking me since yesterday. He jabbed a finger at Zara, even tried to fake evidence against me. Ask the precinct about the recorder she tampered with. The nearest officer hesitated, glancing between Zara and Benson. Confusion flickered. The momentum of the raid faltered. Zara's blood ran cold. She wanted to scream the truth, to show the camcorder still in her hands. But Benson's confidence was too steady, too rehearsed. He had been ready for this moment. Mensa stepped forward, voice sharp. Officers, this man is lying. We have a recording. He held up the camcorder. Before he could press play, Benson shouted louder, his tone dripping with righteous outrage. There. He's trying to manipulate you with edited footage. That's his game. He's been filling Zara's head with poison since Justice died, trying to make her fight her own mother. Look at Layla, look at her. Even she came to the court and asked me to protect her daughter from this madness. All eyes turned to Layla. Her shawl slipped from her shoulders. Tears streaked her face. She stammered. Tell them, Layla. Benson barked. Tell them you signed the conservatorship because you knew she wasn't ready. Layla's lips trembled. I did sign, she whispered, broken. But. The but was drowned in Benson's roar. There. Proof. She admitted it. Now arrest these people before someone gets killed. The police surged uncertainly, torn between two stories. Officers shouted conflicting orders. Deshawn stood silent, watching like a hawk, lips curled into the faintest smile. Mensa shoved the camcorder into Zara's hands. Play it, he hissed. Now. Her fingers shook, but she pressed the button. The small screen flickered to life, Benson's voice spilling out into the night. By the time the court blinks, these assets will be long gone. Conservator rights are a beautiful thing. Her mother's too scared to cross me again. The words echoed, undeniable. Benson's smirk cracked. For the first time, sweat dotted his forehead. But then Deshawn stepped forward, his calm like ice against the fire. That recording proves nothing, he said smoothly. It proves Benson offered me a deal. But it doesn't prove I accepted it. Nor does it prove Benson wasn't coerced. The officers hesitated again. Confusion thickened the air. Benson seized the moment, straightening his shoulders. Exactly. This is business talk, twisted. Nothing criminal here. But I'll tell you what is criminal: 3 people hiding in the shadows with a camera, trespassing, spying, and dragging my wife into danger. Zara's throat went dry. For every truth she threw, Benson hurled back a polished lie, and the police couldn't tell which way to turn. Mensa's voice cut through the chaos. Then take us all in. Let the DA sort it. But know this, he jabbed a finger at Benson. Every second you stall, every trick you pull, more of your mask slips. And when it finally comes off, no court will protect you. The standoff broke when the lead officer ordered everyone into custody for questioning. Police cuffed Benson, cuffed Deshawn and his men, and cuffed Mensa too, ignoring his protests. Zara and Layla were placed in the back of a squad car, hearts pounding, wrists burning. As the convoy of cruisers rolled away from the Riverdale lot, Zara glanced out the window. Through the flashing lights, she caught Benson's eyes in the car beside hers. And there it was again, that smile. The smile of a man who had already planned his next move. Zara's stomach twisted. She knew this fight wasn't close to finished. If anything, Benson had just opened the real battle. If you were in Zara's shoes, watching the police hesitate between Benson's lies and your truth, what would you have done? Have you ever seen someone twist the story so convincingly that people believe them? Share your experience in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the shocking turns ahead. The interrogation room smelled faintly of bleach and old coffee, its buzzing fluorescent light making the pale walls look sick. Zara sat on the cold metal chair, wrists free now but her chest heavy with the weight of everything unraveling. She glanced at the one-way mirror, knowing Benson was somewhere close, probably spinning another story, probably twisting another thread into his web. Mensa sat beside her, his leather folder in front of him, though there was little left inside that the police didn't already have. Layla sat in the corner, shawl wrapped around her shoulders, eyes red, her silence as loud as Benson's lies. The detective, a lean man with sharp eyes, leaned across the table. "Zara, I've listened to your recording. I've reviewed the body cam footage. It's clear Benson made threats. That helps you. But," he tapped a thick folder. "There's also the conservatorship paperwork. Signed by your mother. Approved by Judge Rivera. That makes him legally in control of the estate. Until a judge overturns it, the law is on his side." Zara's fists tightened in her lap. "So you're saying he can steal my father's company and there's nothing I can do?" The detective shook his head. "I'm saying you need more than anger. You need proof he's using that conservatorship for personal gain." Mensa spoke up, calm but firm. "We have part of it. The recording of Benson offering trucks to Deshaun Green. But Deshaun's denial muddies it. We need financials. Bank wires. Transfer slips. Proof beyond a conversation in the dark." The detective leaned back. "And you'll need it fast. Judges don't like being reversed. And Judge Rivera," he trailed off, then added carefully, "let's just say Benson may not be the only one with strings in this city." Zara's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" The detective didn't answer. He simply gathered his notes, tapped the folder once, and left. The silence he left behind was heavy. Zara turned to her mother, her eyes burning. "Mom. Enough. What are you not telling me?" Layla froze. Mensa leaned forward. "Layla, if you know something, this is the moment. The longer you wait, the more danger she's in. The more Justice's legacy slips away." Layla's lips trembled. She gripped her shawl tighter, rocking slightly, as if trying to hold herself together. I didn't want you to know," she whispered finally. "Didn't want me to know what?" Zara pressed. Layla looked at her daughter, tears spilling freely now. "Your father's death, it wasn't just an accident. Benson was with him that night." Zara's world tilted. The room spun. She gripped the edge of the metal table to steady herself. "What?" Mensa's eyes narrowed. "Be specific, Layla. What are you saying?" Layla's voice cracked. "Justice was supposed to meet a supplier that evening, but he never made it. His car was found wrecked, the police called it a drunk driver hit and run. But hours before, I heard Benson arguing with him. Loud, angry. Justice was shouting that Benson was cut off, that he'd never touch a cent of his estate. Benson swore he'd regret it." She covered her mouth, sobbing. "I didn't say anything because if Benson was involved, admitting it meant I let him into our lives. It meant I gave him the chance to hurt your father." Zara's breath hitched. Her father's face swam in her mind, his laugh, his lessons, his promises. "You're telling me Benson killed him," she whispered. Layla shook her head desperately. "I don't know. I don't know. But I know Benson wasn't home when he claimed to be. I know his story didn't add up. And when the conservatorship came, I thought maybe if I cooperated, he'd keep us safe. He said we'd all lose if the truth came out." Mensa leaned back, shock flickering across his usually composed face. "My God," he muttered. "If we can prove this, if Benson had any hand in Justice's death, it won't just void the conservatorship. It will bury him. Zara's chest burned, her hands shaking. The pieces clicked together like jagged glass, Benson's obsession, his hunger, his threats. It hadn't started with the will. It started the night her father died. But as the weight of the truth settled in, a knock came at the door. The detective returned, looking tense. "We're releasing everyone until the DA reviews the evidence." But, his eyes cut to Zara. "You should be careful. Word on the street is Benson has friends who don't wear suits or ties. This isn't just about court anymore. It's about survival." Zara stood slowly, her legs unsteady but her voice fierce. "Then we find proof he killed my father. Before he destroys everything else." Layla sobbed quietly in the corner. Mensa placed a hand on Zara's shoulder, steadying her. "Then we go deeper. We dig where Benson thinks no one will look." But as they stepped out of the precinct, the night split with the sound of screeching tires. A dark sedan sped past, its windows rolling down. 3 quick flashes lit the air, gunfire snapping like fireworks. Zara dropped, Mensa dragged her down, Layla screamed. Bullets tore into the concrete wall just inches above their heads before the car roared away into the darkness. Sirens wailed again, officers sprinting outside, shouting commands. But the car was gone. Zara's heart pounded as she pressed against the cold pavement. For the first time, it sank in fully, Benson wasn't just playing legal games anymore. Now he was trying to kill her. The night of the shooting changed everything. Zara had seen Benson's greed, heard his lies, and felt the sting of his betrayal. But now, with bullets flying past her head, she knew the truth. Benson didn't just want her father's empire, he wanted to erase her from it entirely. She sat in her father's office the next morning, her hands wrapped around Justice Adeyemi's fountain pen. The pen was no longer just a keepsake. It was a reminder that her father had built his life on ink, paper, and truth, and she would finish his fight the same way. Mensa paced the office, his leather folder under his arm. "We can't wait 30 days, he said. "By then, Benson and Deshawn will have gutted the company. We need one thing, one undeniable piece of evidence tying him not just to fraud, but to Justice's death." Zara's eyes drifted to her mother, who sat quietly in the corner, shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Layla's face was pale, her eyes rimmed red, but her voice was steady this time. "Then you need to see what I've been hiding," she said softly. Both Zara and Mensa froze. "What do you mean?" Zara asked. Layla opened her purse, pulling out a small black box recorder, older than the one Zara had carried. She set it on the desk with trembling hands. "The night Justice died, I followed him to the garage when he left to meet the supplier. He and Benson were arguing. I recorded part of it. I couldn't bear to listen again, until now." Zara's breath caught as Mensa pressed play. Her father's voice crackled through the speaker, filled with anger. "Benson, you'll never get your hands on this company. Over my dead body." Then Benson's reply, low and venomous. "Careful what you wish for, old man. Because dead men don't make decisions." The recording ended with the slam of a car door and tires screeching. The room went silent, the truth crashing over them like a wave. Mensa exhaled. "This is it. The DA can't ignore this. With this tape, the conservatorship collapses, and Benson," his voice hardened. "Benson goes to prison." But Zara shook her head. "No. He won't stop until he's finished. He'll twist, he'll threaten, he'll bribe. We need more than the DA. We need to confront him before he destroys everything." That night, the confrontation came. Benson arrived at Adeyemi Logistics in the middle of the night, smug as ever, ready to meet Deshawn and finalize the transfer of assets. But instead of Deshawn, he found Zara, Mensa, and Layla waiting for him inside the office. The lights were dim, the walls lined with files and photographs of Justice with his trucks. Benson froze at the sight of them, then smirked. What is this? A family intervention? No, Zara said, her voice steady. This is the end. She pressed play on Layla's recorder. Her father's voice filled the office, followed by Benson's damning words. For the first time, Benson's mask cracked. His smirk faltered. That, he started, but Mensa cut him off. Save it for court. This is already with the DA. Benson's eyes darted between them. He saw no way out, no friendly judge, no quick lie. Desperation flickered in his gaze. He lunged for the recorder. But Zara was ready. She stepped back, holding her father's fountain pen like a blade between them. Touch it, she hissed, and you'll never see daylight again. Benson stopped. The fury in his eyes was raw, animal. For a heartbeat, Zara saw the man who had smiled at her mother, charmed his way into their home, then poisoned it from the inside. But now, his empire of lies was falling. Police lights flared outside the office windows. Officers stormed in, weapons drawn, and Benson's fight ended not with fire, but with cold steel cuffs snapping shut around his wrists. As they dragged him away, Benson sneered at Zara. You think you've won? You're just a girl. You can't carry this empire. Zara lifted her chin, meeting his glare. I don't have to carry it alone. I have people who actually believe in me. Something you'll never understand. Layla wept quietly, clutching her daughter's hand as the officers took Benson into the night. The next morning, the news exploded, stepfather charged in death of prominent businessman, conservatorship overturned. Justice Adeyemi's name filled headlines once more, not as a man whose legacy was stolen, but as one whose daughter fought to protect it. Standing in the depot yard days later, Zara looked at the trucks lined up in the sunlight. The men nodded at her as she passed, not with pity, but with respect. She placed the fountain pen back in her pocket. It was more than ink now. It was her father's legacy, and her promise. Justice Adeyemi had built his company with sweat and grit. Zara would keep it alive with fire and truth. And as long as she drew breath, no one, not Benson, not Deshawn, not anyone, would ever take it away again. What do you think of Benson's downfall? Should Layla be forgiven for staying silent, or was her betrayal too deep? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with friends so more people can experience stories like this one.